Welcome to Mad About 3D. My name is Darren Winfield, and this question I have from a student is, how do I control a pickup so it appears when I press E when I interact with it in Unity? So let's just jump into Unity, and from here we're going to create a new level. So I'm just going to go File, New Scene. We won't save this scene, and we'll go File, Save As, Save Scene As. And we'll just make sure it's in our maps folder, and we'll just call this prototyping. We'll do. And from this scene, I would like to go to our assets, which I've already brought in the prototype assets. Now, if you don't know how to do that, that's under the assets, import packages, and it's the prototype. And here, all I want is under the prefabs, I'm looking for the 64x1. That's this one. If you actually have it set up like this, it's hard to read, so I actually zoom out so as I can see what it's called. So I'll drag that into the scene. I'll right click over in the cog over here and reset it so it's in our position. The next thing for our prototype testing, I'd like to bring in a 3D object and a sphere. Now this sphere is going to be our prefab, so I'll need to make a prefabs folder. I'm going to name this sphere pickup for our testing purposes, and I'm just going to drag it into our prefabs. So as once we created one, we can create multiple. Next thing I'd like to do in this process is I'd like to just basically learn how to turn it on and off based on key strokes. So let's just add a component, and under the component is a script. It's a brand new script, and let's give it, we'll just call it pickup for the moment. And we'll just create and add. And then what you do is you can either double click on the pickup or right click here and edit script. So I'll just double click here. Now I'm just going to leave this here as it is at the moment. I'm just going to add a little bit of code in the update. And the first thing I'd like to do is in my update method, if I grab the input, which is already done by Unity for us, we're going to get the key, and the key code we're looking for is Z. And when I press Z, I'm going to go to the game component, which is this object. I'm going to get its component, the renderer, and then I'm going to enable it to true. So if I press Z, it's going to be visible. If I press X, it's going to be invisible. So let's just save that. We'll go back to Unity, and we'll give that a test. Oh, before we do that, I need to have a playable character. So let's just throw in something to get started. So I like, once again, under the assets, the import packages, I bring in the characters just to get me started. And what I'm going to do is the first person prefab, and from I like the rigid body. This is basically means that I can walk up and down steps. I'm just going to move my prefab out of the way so as when I spawn, let's just make it so as when I spawn, let's put it in here. Notice down in the game, I can see my object to start with. So let's press play on that, and I can look up and I can see it. If I press Z, I can see it. If I press X, I can hide it. So that's the first part of the equation. We've got the ability to hide and show the element. Let's just add a little bit more experimentation for this. So with the game object selected, I'll double click on the pick up object, and let's have a go at looking at creating a trigger. Oh, I forgot to add the trigger. So let's just put the code in, and we'll go back and add the trigger. So over here we need a trigger component on top of this game object. So I'm going to add a brand new component, and it needs not 2D, it has to be a physics 3D. And in this case, I'm going to create a sphere collider. Now you can't see it at the moment because it's not big enough, and I'd like this particular collider to be a bit bigger. So I'm just going to make this maybe 3, so it's just nice and big. Now that means that my player is a little bit close to it. So this is the area of influence, or where this collider. The thing that we need to make sure that we click on here is make sure it is a trigger. So I'm going to enable the trigger here, and then we'll go back to our double click on the pickup, and here's the two functions that I want to add. So on the trigger enter, I want to hide the object. Let's do that to start with. And then when I exit the trigger, I want to show it again. So let's just see what that does. So let's just save that. We'll come back to Unity and we'll press play. So if I enter it, it hides. If I leave, it shows. Well, that's pretty good. It's the opposite to what we want. So let's just go back into and have a little think. Now, when I first start, I can actually hide it. So let's just make its visibility. I'll just Control C on this and I'll put it on the start. So when I first start, I want to hide the object. When I enter, so I'm just going to reverse this. I've got the code down here just so as you don't have to see me typing. So let's just put this code in. So when I enter, I want to show it. When I leave, I want to hide it. Now this is getting really close to what he wants. But at the moment, if I press play, I can't see my object and I don't know where to do it. So if I just come back into the game and press play, Visual Studio had to have a little think about that. I can't see it. If I go forward, I can see it. If I come back, I hide it. And that's pretty cool. Just for the sake of this element or this activity, I'm actually adding one more component to this. And it's going to be an effects component. And let's just add a halo. And for the halo, let's just change its size to about 3. And let's change the color, just so as I know where it is. Something like that. That just makes it a little bit easier to see where the element is. So I know that there's something there. If I go close, I can see it. And if I come back, I can't see it again. That's pretty good. Now the last step, or the last part that he wants, that is if I'm in this area and I press E, then I want to see it, or to enable it. So let's just see whether we can do that. So this is the on enter. So if let's just grab this code, Control C, and we'll copy it, just get rid of this. So if I enter into the object and I press, he wants E for interact, then I'll show the object. If I leave the collision, I want to hide it. That's pretty cool. So let's just see where that's exactly what he wants. So let's just come back and we'll just press play. All right, so if I'm inside the object and I press E, E doesn't work by the looks of it. Let's, because it might be mapped to something else. In my testing, I tried Z. So let's just go back and just check. So I want to see it. Let's just put Z for the moment. We might have to change that elsewhere. For the moment, we won't worry about it. So let's save that, give it another go. Press save. And we'll run it. And we'll come into it and I press Z. And if I leave, I can hide it. Might be interesting is if I press Z a second time, it might toggle. I'm not going to talk about toggling at this point. I think that's enough. So by the time we get to the end of this, we need to get rid of or clean up our learning. So we're not using the update method at all. So we could arguably get rid of this. And we are using the OnEnter trigger, and we are using the exit trigger to hide it. And Z at the moment is our interact key. We can move that later. Cool. Hopefully that has helped organize your triggers and get you started with your project. I'll see you on the next video answering further questions. Bye.